You know what you are supposed to do. You have read the books. You have made the budget. You have set the savings goal. And somewhere, at the beginning of every month, you have told yourself the same thing. This time is going to be different. And then payday arrives. And something happens. The money moves. Before you make a single conscious decision. Before you sit down and review the plan you made. It is already somewhere else. Or you get a windfall. A bonus. A tax return. An unexpected transfer from someone who owed you. More money than you have seen in a single moment in a very long time. And you tell yourself, this changes everything. And within weeks, you are standing in exactly the same place. And you cannot explain it. Or, you cannot bring yourself to open your banking app. Not because you are irresponsible. Not because you do not care. Because something about looking at it feels like danger. And you have given yourself the same explanation every single time. I am just bad with money. But what if that explanation is not accurate? What if the real story is not about discipline at all? What if it started long before your first salary? Long before your first bank account? Long before you were old enough to make a single financial decision for yourself? In 2023, Experian conducted one of the largest surveys ever done on Americans' relationship with money. 2,000 adults. Broad demographic. Every income level. What they found stopped the financial industry. 68% of American adults said they have suffered from, or are currently suffering from, financial trauma. Not financial stress. Not money anxiety. Financial trauma. 65% reported experiencing negative thoughts, flashbacks, and anxiety when dealing with financial matters. And among millennials, that number climbed to 77%. 3 in 4 people walking around with a wound that nobody has named. In the same year, PTSD researcher Dr. Galen Buckwalter published findings from a separate study. He found that 1 in 4 Americans and 1 in 3 millennials experience financial stress at levels that qualify for a PTSD diagnosis. Not metaphorically. Clinically. And yet, the personal finance world keeps selling the same solution. Make a better budget. Build better habits. Have more discipline. And for the 68%, that advice, no matter how many times they hear it, does not stick. Because the problem is not the budget. The problem is the wound underneath the budget. This video is about the wound. What it is. Where it comes from. How it is showing up in your financial life right now, in ways you may not have named yet. Why more income alone will not fix it. And what actually begins to heal it. If you have ever felt like you are fighting yourself every time money is involved, this video was made for you. Let us start with a precise definition. Because this word, trauma, gets used loosely. And when a word gets used loosely, it loses its power to explain anything. Financial trauma, according to researchers at the Financial Therapy Association, is a cluster of physiological, mental and emotional responses to an event or series of events where actual or threatened financial harm occurred. 3 things in that definition matter enormously. The first, physiological. Not just a thought. Not just a feeling. A response in the body. The racing heart when a bill arrives. The shallow breathing when you try to look at your account. The physical avoidance, putting the phone down, closing the app, before you have even seen the number. That is not weakness. That is a nervous system responding. The second, event or series of events. It does not have to be a single catastrophic moment. It can be chronic. Repeated. Quiet. The constant low-level stress of not having enough. Growing up in a home where money was a source of fear, or silence, or conflict, every single month. Watching a parent cry over bills. Being the child in class whose family could not afford the school trip. Hearing, directly or indirectly, that money is something that happens to other families, not yours. The third, threatened financial harm. It does not even have to have happened. The threat of it is enough. A childhood spent watching the adults around you in permanent financial anxiety teaches your nervous system that money equals danger before you have ever held a salary in your life. And here is what makes it invisible. It does not feel like trauma. It feels like personality. It feels like, I am just not a money person. It feels like, I have always been bad at saving. It feels like, I just do not have the discipline other people seem to have. But here is what the research actually shows. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Financial Therapy, using a sample of 500 adults, found significant associations between adverse childhood experiences and maladaptive financial beliefs and behaviors in adulthood. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Family and Economic Issues found that having experienced more adverse childhood experiences decreases financial well-being at every income level. Every income level. It does not matter how much you earn. If the wound is there, it shapes the outcome. Financial trauma is not a character flaw. It is a wound that was never treated. And untreated wounds do not disappear. They shape everything built on top of them. Financial trauma does not arrive fully formed. It is built, slowly, across years, from experiences that a younger version of you had no framework to process. The first origin. Scarcity. Growing up without enough is not just a financial experience. It is a neurological one. In 2013, Harvard economist Sendhil Mullainathan and Princeton psychologist Eldar Shofar published one of the most important books in behavioral economics. They called it Scarcity. Their research showed that financial scarcity does not just affect your wallet. It affects your cognition. It creates what they called a bandwidth tax, consuming mental resources that would otherwise be available for planning, for self-control, for long-term thinking. In one study, they found that the cognitive drain of financial stress is equivalent to a loss of 13 IQ points. 13 points. From stress alone. And the research published in the journal Science confirmed it. Poverty directly impedes cognitive function, not because poor people are less capable, but because managing scarcity consumes the very mental resources that better decisions require. Now, imagine growing up inside that cognitive load. Not visiting it. Not observing it. Living inside it, as a child. Your brain learns something in that environment. It learns that resources are scarce. That safety is unreliable. That the future cannot be trusted. And that learning does not disappear when the income improves. It stays encoded. And it shapes every financial decision made from that moment forward. The second origin. Chaos. Some people did not grow up poor. They grew up in financial chaos. Money came and went, unpredictably. The household could be fine one month, and in crisis the next. The feast and famine cycle that left the nervous system in a state of permanent alert. What that teaches the nervous system is not scarcity. It teaches unpredictability. And unpredictability, in some ways, is harder to heal than scarcity. Because at least with scarcity, the nervous system knows what to expect. Chaos teaches it to expect anything. And to stay permanently on guard against a threat that might arrive at any moment. The third origin. Shame. Money and shame have been partners for longer than most people realize. The shame of not having enough. The shame of needing help. The shame of being the family that could not afford it, whatever it was. Brad Klontz, one of the leading researchers in financial therapy, and his colleagues at Kansas State University developed what they call the Klontz Money Script Inventory. Their research identified 4 core money belief patterns that drive financial behavior. One of the most damaging, money avoidance, is directly connected to shame. People who avoid money do not avoid it because they are lazy. They avoid it because they learned, somewhere, that engaging with money leads to pain. An avoidance of bank accounts, of statements, of financial conversations, is one of the most financially destructive patterns a person can carry. The 4th origin. Inherited patterns. You did not only inherit your parents' financial situation. You inherited their relationship with money. A 2012 study in the Journal of Financial Planning found that money beliefs, typically unconscious, are developed in childhood and drive adult financial behaviors. These scripts are passed down through generations, like genetic inheritance, except they are entirely learned. Their anxiety about money. Their silence around money. Their arguments about money. Their magical thinking about money. Children learn how to feel about money long before they ever earn any. And there is a 5th origin that the research is only beginning to understand. Epigenetics. Studies, including a landmark 2015 study on children of Holocaust survivors, have found that severe trauma can change the way genes function, and those changes can be transmitted to future generations. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The body's primary stress response system can be altered by traumatic experience, and those alterations can be inherited. You may be carrying a stress response to a financial reality that you never personally experienced. That your grandparents experienced. That their grandparents experienced. This is not an excuse. It is an explanation. And explanations, unlike excuses, give you somewhere to go. Financial trauma does not announce itself. It arrives disguised as personality, as habit, as choice. Klontz and colleagues identified 8 distinct disordered money behaviors in their clinical research, patterns that appear across income levels, across cultures, across every background. Here are the 7 that appear most often, in the people most likely to be watching this video. Signature 1. Avoidance. You cannot look at your bank account. You do not open financial statements. You avoid conversations about money, even with yourself. You tell yourself you are being irresponsible. You are not. Your nervous system learned, at some point, that looking at money means pain. And it is protecting you from looking. In Klontz's research, people living in financial denial were significantly more likely to have grown up in lower socioeconomic households and to currently carry credit card debt. The avoidance creates the problem it was trying to avoid. That is how trauma loops work. Signature 2. Self-sabotage. The windfall that disappears. The raise that produces more spending, not more saving. The pattern of building toward financial stability and then doing something that undoes it. Just before it becomes real. This is not stupidity. This is not self-destruction for its own sake. This is the nervous system returning to familiar ground. Stability can feel unsafe when your nervous system was calibrated for scarcity. When safety is not a feeling you have a template for, the body finds its way back to what it knows. Signature 3. Chronic under-earning. Staying in work that pays less than your skills deserve. Not negotiating. Not asking. Not believing, at the level of the body, that you are allowed to earn more. Klontz's research on money scripts found that money avoidance beliefs, the sense that you do not deserve wealth, are significantly associated with lower income and lower net worth. Not because the person earns what they deserve. Because the belief about what they deserve becomes the ceiling. Signature 4. Compulsive spending. Not retail therapy, the casual version everyone jokes about. The clinical version. Spending that happens automatically, often without pleasure, as a response to emotional discomfort. The purchase does not bring joy. It brings momentary relief from a feeling that was never really about money. Klontz research found that compulsive buying disorder, which affects approximately 8% of adults, is associated with money worship scripts, the belief that more money will solve the feeling of not being enough. It never does. Because the feeling was never about the money. Signature 5. Financial hoarding. The opposite of compulsive spending, but rooted in the same place. Extreme anxiety around spending anything. Difficulty investing because it feels like losing. Difficulty enjoying money because it never feels like enough. The scarcity mindset, operating even when the scarcity is gone. The body still believes the drought is coming. And it is hoarding against a famine that ended years ago. Signature 6. Financial enmeshment. Giving money you cannot afford to give. Lending to people who will not repay. Paying for things that are not your responsibility because the guilt of not giving feels worse than the cost of giving. We talked about this in video 3. The black tax. This is where it lives, not just in the culture, but in the nervous system. The compulsion to give, even when giving destroys, is a trauma response. A pattern learned in a system where saying no felt catastrophically dangerous. Signature 7. Money avoidance disguised as virtue. Telling yourself that money does not matter. That wealthy people are corrupt. That you are not interested in material things as a way of protecting yourself from the pain of not having them. If money does not matter, not having it cannot hurt you. This is not philosophy. This is armor. An armor, worn long enough, becomes indistinguishable from the person wearing it. This is the chapter most financial educators skip. Because it requires accepting something that does not appear in any spreadsheet. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a financial threat and a physical one. Neuroscientist Dr. Bruce Perry, whose research has shaped how we understand trauma's impact on the brain, explains that trauma keeps the brainstem, the most primitive and survival-oriented region of the brain, in a state of hyperactivation. When that system is dominant, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational planning, long-term thinking, and financial decision-making, goes offline. When you look at a bank account, and the number frightens you, your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. The rational planning center of your brain goes dark. And the oldest, most survival-oriented parts take over. In that state, you cannot make a good financial decision. Not because you are not intelligent enough. Because your biology will not allow it. You are in survival mode. And survival mode is not optimized for index funds. This is why, just make a budget and stick to it, fails so many people. The budget is a prefrontal cortex solution. But the problem is happening in the amygdala. And according to polyvagal theory, developed by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, trauma dysregulates the vagus nerve, which plays a central role in the body's ability to feel safe and to regulate emotions. If your early experiences taught you that money is associated with fear, or shame, or instability, your nervous system may respond to even small financial decisions as though they are life or death threats. This is what researchers call the money stress response cycle. Stress about money triggers the survival response. The survival response impairs financial decision-making. The impaired decisions create more financial stress, which triggers the survival response again. It is a loop. And willpower does not break loops. Understanding does. This is the chapter that surprises people most. Because the assumption, the deep, unexamined assumption, is that the problem is the amount. If I just had more, I would be okay. If the number was bigger, I would finally feel safe. The Experian research, which examined what actually reduces financial stress, found something that challenges that assumption directly. What reduces financial stress is not higher income. It is clarity. Financial education. Planning. Knowing what to expect. People with clear financial knowledge often experience more relief than people who simply earn more. Two people can have the same balance in their account. One feels safe. The other feels like the ground is about to disappear beneath them. The difference is not the number. It is the nervous system history. The family messages. The cultural context. The wound, or the absence of it. And here is what the research on sudden wealth shows. When people who have financial trauma receive a significant windfall, the wound does not heal. It activates. The nervous system, which was built in scarcity or chaos, does not know how to hold abundance safely. And so it finds a way, through spending, through giving, through self-sabotage, to return to the familiar. More money amplifies what is already there. If what is already there is a healthy relationship with money, more money builds more wealth. If what is already there is financial trauma, more money passes through the same wound. This is not fatalism. This is not saying the wound cannot heal. It is saying the wound has to be addressed. Directly. Not worked around. Not papered over. Addressed. Healing financial trauma is not a single moment. It is a direction. And the direction starts with one thing. Naming it accurately. The first step. Recognition. Not, I am bad with money. But, I have a learned response around money that was shaped by experiences I did not choose. That distinction is not semantic. It is the difference between a character flaw and a wound. Character flaws are addressed by trying harder. Wounds are healed by understanding and by care. And once you name it accurately, you stop fighting yourself. And you start, for the first time, working with what is actually there. The second step. Nervous system regulation. Before any financial strategy can work, the nervous system needs to feel safe enough to engage with money without triggering the survival response. This looks different for different people. For some, it is financial therapy. A recognized and growing discipline that combines financial planning with psychological support, and that addresses the nervous system response directly. For some, it is starting with the smallest possible financial task. Checking one account. Opening one statement. And building tolerance, slowly, with each small act. The goal is not to eliminate the threat response entirely. It is to lower it enough that the prefrontal cortex can come back online. And do its job. The third step. Financial literacy as a safety tool. Not budgeting tips. Not savings hacks. Genuine understanding of how money actually works. Because knowledge reduces the unknown. And the unknown is a primary driver of the threat response. When you understand compound interest, the market dropping 20% stops feeling like the end and starts feeling like the mechanism. When you understand how tax efficiency works, the bill stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like a system you can navigate. Knowledge does not eliminate fear. It gives fear a smaller surface area to work with. The fourth step. Community and witness. Shame lives in silence. And financial trauma is deeply connected to shame. One of the most consistently documented healing forces across trauma research is being witnessed. Having another person know your actual financial situation without judgment. A financial therapist. A trusted accountability partner. A community of people working through the same patterns. The shame loses power when it is no longer a secret. The fifth step. Rewriting the story, slowly, with evidence. Every small financial win, however small, is a data point against the old story. The automatic savings that held for 1 month. The account you opened and looked at. The conversation about money that you had instead of avoided. The statement you read from beginning to end. Each one of those is evidence. Evidence that contradicts, I am just bad with money. Enough evidence, over enough time, and the story begins to shift. Not because you forced it. Because the body, finally, has proof. Let us come back to the person at the beginning of this video. The one who knows what they are supposed to do. Who has made the budget? Who has told themselves, this month is going to be different? Now you know why it has been hard. It was not lack of discipline. It was not lack of intelligence. It was not lack of caring. It was a nervous system shaped by experiences before you had any choice in them, doing exactly what it was trained to do. And here is what is also true. The nervous system that learned fear can learn safety. The story that was written in scarcity can be rewritten slowly, with evidence, with patience, with information. Not overnight. Not with a single video. But it begins somewhere. It begins with calling it accurately. Not I am bad with money, but I have a response to money that was shaped before I understood what money was. It begins with understanding that the problem was never your character. It begins with a recognition that you are not broken. You are responding. And responding is something you can work with. Across 5 videos now, we have covered a lot of ground. In video 1, we talked about why poor people stay poor. How scarcity consumes cognitive bandwidth. How the environment shapes behavior before the person ever makes a choice. In video 2, we talked about emotional spending. How the nervous system reaches for comfort, and how systems were built to exploit exactly that. In video 3, we talked about the black tax. How the one who made it out carries a weight that compounds silently against their own future. In video 4, we talked about the racial wealth gap. The architecture of it. The compounding of it. The headwinds that operate right now in your life that nobody named for you. And in this video, we went deeper than any of those. We went to the wound that sits underneath all of them. Because you cannot build real wealth on top of unaddressed trauma. But you absolutely can build it on top of understanding. This channel exists for one reason. To give you the financial knowledge and the psychological honesty that was never given to you. Not watered down. Not simplified beyond usefulness. The real thing. In the next video, we are going to talk about the one money conversation that almost nobody in your family ever had. The conversation that, if someone had sat down and had it with you, at 15, at 20, at any point before your first salary, would have changed everything. We are going to call it the money talk. If this video helped you see something more clearly, share it with one person who needs to hear it. That is how this information travels. We will see you in the next one.